that it was her. She won the competition, but she was taken out of it because of their contract. Dolly himself is to blame for hiring such a useless screenwriter like her because she has long since lost her fame. Now the young master found her, and it was his mistake. There is no need to worry about his film because it will definitely be a failure. Chenjai looked serious. He told him that Dolly was arguing with him. Considering Ninewa's current influence, even if she is not a better actress than them, it will still affect their box office. This is the main problem. He told him that he would talk to the director sometime later at the prestigious AI Lumo Hotel. The men shouted that they wanted another toast. They clinked their glasses and took a sip. A man named Bai Zifai was the vice president of Penghai. He told the man Lon that they had not seen each other for a long time and that he had been looking bad lately. Lon rubbed his head with his hand and told him not to remind him of this. It was like he had been jinxed. He told Zifai that he had made a good film, and then asked him why he called him here then. Chenjai sat next to the vice president. Zifai told Lon that half of their finances are spent on a famous actress, and he does not devote himself to work. He was gone 2 days out of 3, and there was more and more bad news, and their PR doesn't work at all. He chuckled and told him that he knew that his contract with Nianwei was still valid. The vice president raised a glass of alcohol to his lips and told Lon that if she was the lead role, their profit would be about 3 billion. Lon slammed his fists on the table and asked him what he meant. He told him not to mention her name. Lon called her a fool and told him that she had hurt him badly. Zifai asked him what he was talking about. He opened his eyes wide in surprise and asked him if she was not in his company. How good is she? The vice president told him that she was lured away by the prodigal son Dolly. Long cried and clenched his teeth, and then told him that the young master found out about his relationship and forced him to return Nianwei to him. He even compensated for the losses. The problem was that Dolly was too strong, and he could not compete with him. He could only sit peacefully. Chenjai calmly told Lon that he was mistaken because he could not do anything with the young master and Nianwei. He smiled disgustingly and asked him if he had any dirt on her. Does he want to put it on the internet? He told him that if he cleared up the scandal around Nianwei, he wouldn't have to do anything. Lon thought for a moment, and then furrowed his eyebrows and slammed his fist on the table again, and told Chenjai that his words made sense. The pathetic woman will be unable to do anything, and he will finally let out his anger. He will make her regret everything. The glass on his table fell and alcohol spilled out. Lon put his finger up and said Dolly would sit and watch this. Zifai and Chenjai smiled. They will all ruin his movie. Sometime later, at the Dolly Hotel, people pulled back the red curtain. It was the opening ceremony of the film In Pursuit of the Truth. The workers and actors who starred in the film stood on the stage. Journalists and photographers took pictures of them and admired them. Yikai was pumped up. He seemed to shine with beauty. People were talking about how this is a movie where Nianwei plays the female lead. This could make headlines in show business. They continued to be actively photographed. Photographers asked, "Who is this guy? Is he really the main actor?" The man with the camera said he didn't know him. The other guy said it didn't fit at all. They asked, "Who is the director of this film?" Dolly and Musen also stood on stage. They looked very good. He waved his hand to the audience, and people said that this is the son of the Hong family. This is his first job. And next to him stood his bride. She looked just like an actress. They looked at each other, and Musen asked him if he was sure that he himself would be the director of the film. She told him that he only knew how to throw money away, so he couldn't waste Nianwei's popularity. He smiled and told her that nowadays even an unknown director can become famous, and then asked her why not try it. Dolly told her that he could do it because she was helping him. Mushin smiled and told him that she will help him, but they have a strong opponent that they will have to face, so they need to do something new. She is afraid that he will invest all the money in this film and it will become unpopular. They must be mentally prepared for this. The young master chuckled and told her that even if they failed, it would not be a big problem for him. After all, his inheritance was hundreds of millions. After the opening ceremony was over, the secretary called him. She told him that employees of the Disney Park Department wanted to set up a meeting with him to discuss issues of their cooperation. He asked her if this was really about that wasteland. She answered him in the affirmative, and then Dolly told Zaioi that she could talk to them on his behalf. She opened her eyes wide in surprise and asked him if he really wanted to send her for negotiations. He smiled and told her that she did not need to worry during the conversation. He needs someone who can help him. In the future, Zaioi will become the general manager of the company, which means that she has full authority to speak on his behalf in discussing business issues. Dolly told his secretary that he would be busy during the shoot. Zayoi jumped for joy, her face flushed, and she told her boss that she would definitely work hard. After that, Chayan approached him. She held a strange device in her hand and called Dolly. She told him that the thing he asked her to do was ready. She asked him if he wanted to try it. He smiled and asked Chayan if it was true. The young master told her that she did it quite quickly and they needed to go outside to test the thing. Muzan asked him what he asked her to do, since he was so delighted. He walked towards the exit and told her that she would now see everything for herself. They went out to the backyard. Chayan put the thing on the asphalt and then asked the boss if she should start. He answered her in the affirmative and then she pressed the button. The device seemed to have a small screen or magnifying glass. The screen moved up and a large monster with tentacles appeared in front of them, so Mushin screamed in fear. She jumped on Dolly and hugged him with her arms and legs. She told him that it was very scary. He coughed and then smiled and told her that she had nothing to be afraid of because it was not a real monster. Muzan asked him what he meant. Dolly told her with admiration that this is a holographic projection technology. As long as the image is static, it can be projected in this way. With the help of this device, the film will become more realistic and unique. Muzan was surprised and told him that it was excellent. She was still hanging on Dolly, and he asked Chayan how many devices had she made. She told him that she only made 3. The young master told her that this was enough, and he would buy it all. He will give $1 million for each piece for their film. They'll start filming this now, sometime later. People called for help. They ran away in panic. Everyone was screaming and calling for help. Behind them was a huge monster. It was growling. People were screaming that it was a monster. They asked who would save them. In fact, it was a projection. The giant was not real. The monster growled, but suddenly a woman's voice said that the giant dared to get out, so they would do it. Nyanwei and Yikai appeared on the site. They were in black superhero costumes. People screamed that these were electric hunters, and they were coming to save them. Blue energy appeared around Yikai's hands. It was in the shape of a hoop. It was a blade of wind. In Nyanwei's hands was a whip with blue energy. It was a lightning whip. Suddenly, she hung on the rope and laughed loudly, so the filming was stopped. She was hanging head down. Her body was shaking, and then Dolly asked her if everything was okay with her. Nyanwei told him that she was a little afraid of heights, and that's why she was nervous, and then apologized to him for it. The young master smiled and told her that everything was fine, and that it was normal to worry a little. He suggested everyone take a break. Dolly sat down next to Zayouyu with a script in his hands. He pointed his finger at the piece of paper and told her that in the part with the scene of the incident, the lines needed to be changed. She told him that she agreed with him. Nyanwei walked up to them. She looked worried and called the boss. She looked down awkwardly and told him that she felt that her acting was not very good, so she was worried about it. Nyanwei asked him why not choose another person for this role. Dolly smiled kindly and told her that she was doing well. She must be confident just like when she performs songs on stage. Besides, this role was written by him and the screenwriter especially for her, so only she should perform it. Yikai smiled and agreed with him, but Nyanwei again told them that she. But she didn't finish the thought, because the screenwriter asked Dolly why don't they make a drama first. She told him that this was so that the lead singer could quickly get used to the role. The young master told her it was a good idea. He told Nyanwei that she was the first actor his company had signed. He will definitely make her a popular actress, TV star and singer, but first she must gain confidence. Nyanwei smiled and blushed, and then told him that she would work hard. That night at the Hong family palace, Dolly was watching the system update again with a yellow screen in front of him. All his indicators increased by 10 points. The young master stood up, his cane fell to the floor, and he punched the air in front of him, as if demonstrating a fighting technique. His body gained even more muscle, and he said that he now looks like a normal person. According to the current data in the system, he can surpass Bolt and Contact Tyson. He asked the previous owner of his body with a grin after his rebirth in this world, was there anyone here who looked worse than him? Dolly smiled and said that he was a little nostalgic for the type of people from his previous life. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Muzan told him that a bad situation had happened. He quickly put on his shirt and told her that she could come into the room. His fiancée walked in quickly, looking worried and holding a tablet in her hand. She told the young master to look at the tablet screen. An anonymous person on the internet said that Nyanwei was supported by a rich man and had a child abroad. This news is now trending, and the number of views on this post has exceeded 1 billion. Obviously, this will discredit Nyanwei and damage her reputation. She told him it was all because of their movie. Muzan panicked. She asked Dolly what should they do. He smiled and told her that she didn't need to worry because he knew who did it, so he would deal with it quickly. The young master pretended to be thoughtful and asked her if the rich man was really him. Do they mean him? Muzan showed him her fist and asked him if he was still in the mood to joke. She told him to do something. She was very angry and wary, her eyebrows furrowed, and she asked her fiancé if they should call the police. Muzan told Dolly that Wenqi and Chenjai from Penghai definitely did this, only with them they now have a direct conflict of interest. The young master walked towards his bed and told her that calling the police was boring. He suggested that they pretend they hadn't heard anything and just continue filming. She opened her eyes wide in surprise and asked him what kind of nonsense he was talking about. Dolly lay down on the bed and told her that she only needed to calm herself and Nine-Way down and let her act in the film at ease. The more noise this scandal creates, the better for them. Muzan asked him what he meant. He scratched his ear with his finger and closed his eyes contentedly, and then told her that even if she called the police to investigate, she would find that it was fabricated news by some unknown private media. Therefore, it will all end with them only clarifying the situation and apologizing to them, and the instigators will not suffer in any way. Even knowing who exactly did it, they have nothing to charge them with, because it would be an accusation without direct evidence, so they need to keep it simple. He narrowed his eyes and told Mushin that they needed to let them be aggressive, and in the end, it would suddenly hit their reputation and bring them to the bottom. This will be the right decision. Meanwhile, people around the world began to learn new news about Nine-Way. The fat guy at the computer was very surprised that she turned out to be such a person. He said he doesn't like her anymore. The guy asked who kept her. Everyone was discussing this news on the internet. Many people wrote about abortion on the Nine-Way forum. The user wrote that he really thought that she was an innocent goddess, but she was deceiving everyone. Another user wrote that it is not surprising that she suddenly became so popular, because this always happens if a sponsor takes care of a girl. It's disgusting. One user wrote that Nine-Way could have been slandered, and there is no evidence against her. Users asked if she really had a sponsor. They called her a rich people's sucker. They will never listen to her songs again. The next day, there is a hunter at the film set. Venchi happily looked at the screen of his phone and called the director. He told him that Nine-Way's black background was now on the hot search list. Chenjai smiled contentedly and told him that they were writing on the internet that she had recently starred in a film and that her own fans were boycotting her. Now they don't like her. Lon did this very quickly, and now Nine-Way will create a big problem for Dolly. When she smiled and told him that the most important thing was that even if Nine-Way wanted to sue someone, she would not be able to find the culprit. He asked the director with a grin who would let Dolly interfere with them. He told Chenjai that the young master really laughed at them when they came to talk to him kindly. This is even more hateful than the making of his film called The Hunt for Truth. This is similar to the title of their film, The Wind Hunter. They both smiled contentedly that their plan was a success. Then she told the director that this situation would develop in this way. Either Dolly would give up when all the investors took their money back, or he would still make the film to the end, and the audience would ignore the release of it. He will definitely fail. He laughed and Chenjai grinned and told him that the prodigal son would remain the same as before. The second generation of rich people only know how to spend money. Dolly found himself in a situation in which he knows nothing at all. But the situation is not easy. This will teach him a lesson. The man approached the director and told him that someone posted information on the internet that Nine-Way was only playing the lead role in the film thanks to his sponsor. There's still a lot of news. He asked Chenjai if he really didn't want to hear about it. The director laughed mockingly and told the man that some anonymous person decided to simply publish Nine-Way's dark past, and it went viral. He asked him if there was something more. How will Dolly cope with this situation? Meanwhile, on the film set, there is a truth hunter. Nine-Way sat in front of the boss. She told him that but she didn't finish the thought because she started crying. Dolly told her that she needed to stop crying because it was not her fault. He asked her if she trusted him. She stopped crying and loudly told him that he pulled her out of despair and she trusted him. The young master tightly wrapped his hands around the cane and made a serious face. He told her that from now on, she puts the phone aside and doesn't look at it. She should move into his house and sleep with Mushin. Apart from this, he will make sure that there is no bullying towards her family. Dolly told her to just trust him and calmly continue playing the role in the film, letting him figure it out. She should trust him and finish filming the movie. Nine-Way bowed to him and agreed with him. She told him that he should help her find justice. He was surprised and told her that she needed to rest first. She stood up and left his office, but Zayoi came right after her. She gave him the document and told the boss that she found it. Dolly smiled and asked her if this was true. He told her that this man was responsible for this, so she should make an appointment with him. In addition, he asked the secretary to inform the man that Dolly wanted to return one thing. He will greet him at night of the same day near the company building. The driver asked Dolly if he would really go alone. He answered him in the affirmative and told him to just wait for him in the car because he would come back. He walked towards the entrance to the building and said that he was familiar with it. Dolly opened the door and opened his eyes wide because in front of him there were many tall and muscular men. He thought that this was a very grand welcoming ceremony. The young master calmly asked them if they had really decided to declare war on him. Lon stood among them. He smoked a thick cigar and told Dolly that he was really looking forward to their meeting, although they were seeing each other for the first time. There were men standing around him with bats. They looked like real bandits. The young master smiled and told him that he had already seen it. Lon chuckled and told him he was right. He told the men that they would talk in private and so they could go outside. The bald man told the boss that. But he did not finish his thought because the director displeasedly asked him if he really thought that a cripple would beat him up. He told him to get out of here. A couple of minutes later, Dolly and Lon were sitting in the office. The director continued to smoke and told him that he wanted to get straight to the point. Dolly told him that he had something for him. The young master took out a flash drive from his vest pocket and put it on the table. He told the director that this was the last copy of that video. Lon opened his eyes wide in surprise and then pulled his hand towards the flash drive, but Dolly quickly grabbed it. He narrowed his eyes and told the director that there was no need for them to rush so much, because they still had plenty of time. The flash drive was in Dolly's hands, and Lon thought that he was not a mistake because he reacted faster than the former professional boxer. The director of the company, with a calm expression, asked him why they should waste time. He told him that he himself wanted to give him the flash drive, and then asked him what the problem was then. Lon told him that he had already given him a group of girls, so he doubted that their conflict had anything to do with money. He asked Dolly whether now he really wanted to take the whole company away from him. The young master told him that he should calm down because no one was going to take anything from him, and he would receive the video soon. He just wanted to know the information. Lon told him to ask him whatever he wanted. Dolly looked threatening and asked him if the people with whom the director had dinner at the hotel were connected with the harassment of his group on the internet. Lon extended his hand to him and answered in the negative, and then told him to give him the flash drive. The young master pointed his finger at him and told him that he knew that the three of them had talked about it. Since the other two people are not to blame for this, it means that the director is the only one responsible for this bullying. Lon got angry and asked him what he meant. He told him that he doesn't do such things. They just had dinner and drank some wine together. He doesn't even have evidence for his theory. The young master pretended to be upset and told the director that he really didn't have any evidence. Lon furrowed his eyebrows and loudly told him that if he wants to know who is harassing his girls on the internet, then he should go to the police or hire an investigator. And if he doesn't have money, then he can turn to his brother. He laughed, and Dolly told him that the director himself would find out everything for him. Lon asked him if he had gone crazy. Why should he waste time on this? The young master threw the flash drive on the table and told him that it was a dummy, and he still had the real video. The director quickly stood up. He clenched his hand into a fist and asked him what this all meant. Many men with bats burst into the room. They called for their boss. Lon's eyes seemed to light up with rage. He told Dolly that he had crossed all boundaries. He doesn't care about the status of the Hong family. He'll either give him the video or the director might hurt him. He was so angry that the veins on his forehead stood out from the tension. He told him that no one would even blame him if Dolly ever accidentally fell down the stairs. The young master told him that he himself had chosen the difficult path. He just wanted to know if his friends had anything to do with this bullying, and then he would just give him the video. Lon got completely mad. He stood over Dolly and started yelling loudly at him. He told him that they would now see what he would do. He ordered the men to grab him. The director told them that a couple of naked photos of Dolly would be enough for blackmail. He shouted to the young master that he shouldn't have gone to his enemy's lair. The bald man stretched his hands towards him and told everyone to hold the young master. He laughed and said that he was looking forward to the day when he could have fun with Nyanwei. And then they will send it abroad because they will pay a lot of money for it. Suddenly Dolly turned his cane over and the sharp end of it ended up at the man's neck. Lon asked them what was going on. Can't they grab a simple cripple? The young master's eyes seemed to sparkle, and he asked the director if he really thought that he was a cripple. They will check this again. Lon called him a fool and asked him what he wanted. Dolly grinned and told him that he had already told him this. He just needed to answer the question. He is sure that Lon is also involved in this, but his target is the other two men. He put a white sheet of paper on the table and took out a pen. Dolly told him that he had no evidence, and therefore asked him to describe how, where, and when the three of them discussed bullying Nainwei. Of course, his signature will also be needed. If he does this, he can be free. Lon laughed and crossed his arms and told him that he didn't expect a man with Dolly's reputation to be such a treacherous person. But if he does everything according to his instructions, he will betray his friends, and this is wrong. He asked him if he would rather write something himself. The director told him that he should write about how he forced him to terminate his contract with Nainwei. Dolly told him that he was not the kind of person who could lecture others because he had an affair with his brother's wife. Lon got even angrier. He sharply hit the table with his foot and shouted to him that he was finished. The table fell into small pieces and the director swung his leg at Dolly. But the young master was able to dodge his blow and quickly jumped onto the back of the chair. The director told him that he was too smart to be a cripple and then asked him if he really wasn't a cripple at all. Dolly held his cane in his hands and told him that he had recently found the immortality pill and then asked him if he believed him. Lon shouted to him that even if he was a cultivator, he would still be finished, and he didn't care about his family either, even if they buried him in the forest. He swung his fist at him and told him that this was his last chance. He had to give him the video. But Dolly dodged his blow again. He quickly jumped from his chair and told him that first he was waiting for his confession. The director jumped up and wanted to kick him, and then told him that they would deal with the bad things. The young master thought that he wanted to test how strong his body had become after improving this system. Lon sharply kicked his cane and told him that in his youth he was a master of sports in taekwondo, and since Dolly is completely healthy, he can expect no mercy. The cane broke in two from this blow. He still had a huge cigar in his teeth and swung his foot at the young master again. The bald man asked his boss if he needed their help. He told them that he could handle this fool himself. Dolly and Lon swung their legs at each other. It made contact with each other, and then they froze in place. The men were smiling. They were talking about the end of the baby Dolly. They saw the boss making dents in steel sheets with his knee. The young guy's legs can't stand this. This must be very painful. But the young master looked calm, and so the men were surprised. Doesn't it hurt him? They thought that this couldn't happen, and he was just trying not to show how hurt he was. They shouted to the boss that he needed to make one more blow and knock Dolly to the ground. The men shouted enthusiastically and supported him, but suddenly they saw the face of their boss. Lon's face scrunched up, tears flowed from his eyes, and snot came out of his nose. Did the men not understand what had happened? Why was he wincing in pain? They called Dolly a fool and told him he was cheating. The men ran towards the young master. They shouted that they would tear him apart. But the director put his hand in front of them and told them to stand still. He would deal with it himself. He began to rub his back with his hand and grinned, and then told Dolly that he did not think that masters could be so young. Lon agreed with him and told him that he would give up and would sign whatever he needed. Suddenly, he took out a small stick. It became electrified, and he shouted to him that first Dolly needed to cheer up a little. But a second later, the stick was no longer in his hand, and he opened his eyes wide in shock. The electric stick was in Dolly's hands, and he told the director that this was a pathetic sight. Lon's eyes widened, and he asked him what happened. How did he do it? He quickly turned around and wanted to run away, but the young master quickly put an electric stick on his body. The director's body was shocked, and he asked him to stop. Dolly asked him, isn't he afraid of the Hong family? Did he think that a stun gun would help him? Lon was screaming that he was in pain. The young master asked him if he really believed that the cripple did not pose any threat to him. Does he like it? Will he sign the papers now? The director shouted that he was in pain, and then told him that he would sign everything. The men looked at their boss and thought, should he help? The boss's body became completely electrified. His hair stood on end, and sweat ran down his face. He covered his body with his hand and asked the young master to stop it. He told him that he had video from that day, and it could be proof. Dolly asked him what video he was talking about. Lon nervously told him that when he took Nainwei's group away from him, he realized that he needed to be more careful, so he started taking a recording device with him everywhere. At that dinner, they discussed how they could throw dirt at Nainwei online. He recorded everything on video, so that when they were exposed, the vice president and Chenjai would not be able to deny everything. The young master asked him where this recording was. Lon pulled his hand to his shirt pocket and told him that everything was here. Dolly extended his hand to him and told him that he hoped that this was not another trick. The director, in a panic, told him that he had already almost killed him. He is not ready to risk his life for them. The young master smiled and gave him the flash drive, and then told him that he would believe him. He took what he needed and headed towards the exit, and Lon sat on the floor. His body was trembling, and he said that now everything was over, because everyone would know that he was to blame for the persecution of Nianwei. Dolly smiled contentedly and told him that he should not be afraid, because his goal was Chenjai and the vice president, and he did not need him. Besides, the flash drive with the video is actually real. The director looked at him with wide eyes and thanked him. He was horrified and thought that Dolly had entered his territory alone and beaten him like a small child. He couldn't believe that all this time such a monster had been living under the guise of a rich son. He will need to remember this and never make him angry. A couple of minutes later, the young master got into the car. The driver noticed abrasions on his body and therefore asked him if he was okay. Dolly smugly told him that he shouldn't worry because he was perfectly fine. He asked the driver to go home quickly because he wanted to celebrate his victory. The next day at the Dolly Hotel, there was a video of the dinner on the laptop screen. Chenjai asked the man if he really had dirt on Nianwei and wanted to ruin her reputation online. He told him he didn't have to do it himself. Muzin was unhappy. She crossed her arms over her chest and said that she knew that they were to blame for the bullying. They decided to disrupt their film's release. She called them bastards. Dolly and Cheyenne were next to her. She told them that Nianwei's account already had 3 million insulting comments. They need to deal with this urgently. She wants the culprits to suffer. The young master told her that he understood, because he was also angry with them. But now was not the time to retaliate. He told them that it would be better not to make a fuss and make them his puppets. And to do this, they would have to adjust the video a little. He asked Cheyenne if she could add some parts to the video. She thought for a moment, and then furrowed her eyebrows and told him that it was possible. But if people decided to conduct a professional examination, then everyone would immediately understand that it was a fake. Dolly smiled slyly and said that they would not decide to do this and would simply immediately believe in it. A few days later, it was the premiere of the most important work of the century, Chasing the Wind. There were 2 chairs on the stage. The presenter and Chenjai sat on this. Behind them was a huge poster of the film's characters. The lovely presenter said into the microphone to the audience that first they want to apologize for the fact that the actor who played the main role in the film was injured during filming, and because of this, he could not be here today. But they were lucky, because the main director of the film came to them. She told the audience to meet Ding Chenjai. After that, she turned to him and told him that the first question was as follows. There are rumors that after the overwhelming success of his last film, Young Sister-in-Law's Love, he spent 3 whole years planning to chase the wind. He smiled and told her it was true. He was always sure that the success of the film, The Love of a Young Daughter-in-Law, was not the limit for him. He knew that he could do better. But for this, he would have to go beyond the love drama, so it took more time. Chenjai looked into the audience at the audience and told the presenter that he thought that the film Chasing the Wind was his best work, and he hoped that everyone would like it. She laughed sweetly and told him that she was sure that everything would be so, because the actors who play the main roles in the film are superstars who are very popular. The talent-rich cast pays for the film before it even comes out. The presenter turned towards the hall and said that there were quite a lot of people who wanted to ask the director a question. The girl who was sitting in the hall raised her hand up, and the presenter asked her what she wanted to ask. The girl stood up and greeted them, and then told Chenjai that she had been a fan of his work for many years. He even inspired her to become an actress, but since she is a beginner, she has encountered difficulties and now does not know how to move forward. She doesn't want to sell her body like Nianwei, so she asked him to give her some advice. Chenjai smiled and told her that was a great question. He knows that many newbies in this business face difficulties, but all successful artists started out this way. Instead of relying on rich producers, she needs to be honest, otherwise she won't get further. He raised his finger up and told the girl that only if she combines honesty with hard work and willpower, then after a while she will become a famous actress. He has no doubt about it. The audience began to applaud him. They said that these were good words. Meanwhile, there was a premiere of the film In Pursuit of Truth. Dolly and Muzin were sitting on the stage, but there was no one in the hall. Behind them was a huge poster with the main characters of the film. She told him that they had been sitting here for the 3rd day, and the audience had not come. Their film is coming out tomorrow, and there are even more bad comments on the internet. She looked at the tablet screen, and the young master smiled and told her that everything was going according to plan. Interest in this topic should not subside even for a minute, and tonight they will upload the video to the internet. He looked confident, The show was about to begin. In the evening of the same day, the men drank alcohol. They were happy. Chenjai, Zi-Fi, and Wenqi were sitting at the table. They were all cheerful and joyful. The vice president laughed and told them the movie was coming out soon. Critics are already excited. He told the director that he was right about him. Chenjai thanked him, and Wenqi told them that they were writing on the internet that this was Chenjai's main masterpiece. He is confident that this year they will win all the festivals. Because of Nine Way's persecution, cinemas refused to show Dolly's film. He laughed and told them that he deserved it. Chenjai closed his eyes and calmly told him that he agreed with him. If the young master had been a little more modest, he might not have failed. Zi-Fi smiled and told him that he didn't have to worry, because even if people started to take an interest in this situation, they would only find fake people and would not blame them for bullying. And even if people find out the truth, he will protect him and he will remain a director in any case. One day they will monopolize all the cinema in the country. They clinked their glasses and the vice president told them they were drinking to their future success. Suddenly, an employee ran into the room with a laptop in his hands. He called the boss and told him it was urgent. Zi-Fi asked him what happened. The worker put the laptop in front of them and told him to watch it. They looked at the laptop screen, their eyes widening. Wenqi asked, "What is this?" Their faces were blue with fear and they were sweating. The vice president asked loudly, "What does this mean?" There was a video on the laptop screen. Wenqi told Chenjai that Dolly thought too much of himself. At first he looked down on them, but now he's planning to make a movie. He asked the director if he knew that the young master cast Nine-Wei as the main character. He told him they needed to do something about it. Chenjai told him that it would not be easy, but he knew one good programmer. This person could edit the video for them. He asked Wenqi if Dolly had decided to cast Nine-Wei as the lead role in the film. Chenjai told him that it wouldn't change anything because they would ruin her reputation. They will release a video online and all people will decide that Nine-Wei is selling his body for fame. The three men watched the video with their mouths wide open, cold sweat running down their faces. Then she grabbed his head with his hands and asked, "What is this?" He told them that he had never said such a thing. Chenjai hit the table with his fist and asked who did this. He said that they must find the author of this video. He quickly stood up and told Zi-Fi in a panic that this video was fake. "We need to remove this urgently. Otherwise, his reputation and the film will be over." Wenqi told them that they should urgently call the police. They should arrest the author of the video. He is sure that Dolly did it. Their panic was interrupted by the vice president, who loudly shouted at them to shut up. He looked serious, his eyebrows were furrowed, and he told them that although this video was fake, a similar conversation had definitely taken place, so if they started looking into it, the original recording of the video would appear on the internet. The people who did this want to provoke him, and if he falls for it, the company's reputation will suffer greatly. Therefore, they will not do anything for the sake of the company's reputation. Chenjai asked him, "What does this mean? Does he really want to stay away? What will happen to their film?" He told him that it was Zi-Fi who started all this in the first place. The vice president pointed his finger at him and told him that he was not in the video, nor was there any evidence linking him to the bullying. He asked him if they really wanted to get him involved in this, even though they were the only ones in trouble. He told them it wouldn't work with him. Wenqi asked him what he meant. Chenjai clenched his teeth in anger. At this time, many people had already seen the video. The fat guy stood up abruptly. He was in a computer club and therefore asked other visitors if he had seen this. The guy in the purple t-shirt clenched his hands into fists in anger and said that they are all fools. He almost turned away from his goddess. People asked, "Didn't these two men work on the movie Chasing the Wind?" Internet users began writing angry comments. The person asked if they started to persecute Nine-Wei on purpose to prevent her film from being released. What do they think about themselves? The user felt sorry for Nine-Wei. He wrote that she had suffered a lot these days. They will be punished. People will boycott the film in pursuit of the wind. Another user wrote that he watched the film yesterday in pursuit of the truth, and it was simply amazing. People quickly wrote comments on the internet. Everyone was shocked. After a while, a crowd of people stood in the cinema, shouting that they wanted to support the film for Nine-Wei's sake. Sales of the film In Pursuit of Truth have skyrocketed to incredible numbers. Dolly and Muzin were in the office. She looked at the tablet screen and was very surprised. She told her fiancé that they had already made $1 billion in just 2 days, and the box office sales of the film Chasing the Wind are only a couple of million. She told Dolly that he could do it. He sat contentedly in his chair. He smiled and told her that in fact their film did not stand out as anything special. It was just that this whole incident influenced the discussion of their film. Most of the society now supports them, and their resentment has turned into shame for Nine-Wei's bullying, so they go to the cinemas to watch their film. He told her that everything happened as he had planned. Sometime later, Muzan joyfully hugged her fiancé and told him that their film's box office gross was almost 60 billion. The average rating for this was 9.5 points. They are at the top for search queries. In addition, the largest box office in the world was only 1 billion. Muzan told him he did it. Dolly blushed and laughed, and behind them stood the workers. They applauded them. Everyone was very happy. Muzan straightened her hair with her hand and felt embarrassed, and then told the young master that she was very happy. Dolly raised his finger and told her that he did it for fun and did not even expect great success. But this is not only his merit. He told the employees that they were all involved in this success. The villains got what they deserved, and justice prevailed. Dolly told everyone that such a holiday deserves a festive banquet. All the workers raised their hands in joy and agreed with him in the evening of the same day. It was a small street establishment. Chenjai was sitting at a table and pouring beer into his glass. He was drunk and continued to drink more and more alcohol. The visitors noticed him, so they discussed the bullying situation. The girl told the man to look at Chenjai. It was that same scandalous director. The man told her it was true. He asked her if she thought Chenjai was really cyberbullying to bury their competitor's film. She told him it was true. She heard that the director's film didn't even make 1 million. He deserved it. The man agreed with her. Chenjai's face was red due to alcohol intoxication. Beer was flowing from his mouth, and he asked how did he get to this point. When she was sitting next to him, he slammed his fist on the table and told his friend that he was set up because he was not even in that restaurant. Now their movie failed, and that's why their company fired him. He told him that Nianwei was to blame for all this. If he had known that everything would be like this, he would never have started the persecution. Chenjai's eyes seemed to glow red with anger. He told him that Nianwei was not to blame, because Dolly was to blame for all this. Chenjai regretted that he had underestimated the young master. He squeezed the glass tightly with his hand out of anger, and that's why it broke. The director said that he would not leave this situation just like that. After that, he stood up and told Venchi that he was leaving, and he would lie low for a while, so he should not look for him. Venchi, in a panic, asked him where he was going. Does he really want to do another stupid thing? He told him to just leave Dolly alone. All they needed was trouble with the Hong family. Chenjai looked serious. He told him that he would go to his elder. He lives in the mountains. The elder owed him, and now it was time to pay the bills. And he will still take revenge on the young master. Venchi had sweat running down his face as he watched his friend leave and said that he didn't expect this. He had a feeling that Chenjai would cause a disaster sooner or later, but he had no intention of participating in it anymore. Sometime later, in the Hong family palace, the mother of the family told her son that she couldn't believe it. She asked him if he had really recovered. She cried with happiness and asked him how this happened. How did he recover so suddenly? Dolly smiled contentedly, and his father told him that he had even become a little taller. The young master asked his mother if it was all because he had a wife. He told her that she was taking good care of him. Dolly's mom hugged Muzan and told her that she was very happy that she became her son's bride. She called it a gift. Muzan blushed awkwardly and asked her what she meant. The young master winked at his bride, and then she agreed with his mother. The father of the Hong family told her that she had done a great job with his son, so she could tell her father that he would help him solve all his problems. He didn't have to worry about it. In the future, they will become a family, and relatives must help each other out. Dolly's mother agreed with him. Muzan bowed before them and thanked them. A couple of minutes later, she and her fiancé were in the garden. They sat on a large swing. Muzan looked down and told Dolly that she was a worthless wife, and then asked him why he told his parents that it was she who helped him recover. He smiled and looked at her, and then asked her why she said that to herself. He told her that since they met, people stopped calling him the prodigal son. He became more successful and earned a lot of money. The more money, the better his mood, and the better his mood, the better his health. Muzan blushed and agreed with him, and then thanked him for such kind words. He sighed and put his hand behind her back. He hugged her and asked her if she could thank him then. Their faces were very close to each other, and so she was confused, and then asked him what he meant. He grinned and told her that he wanted her to thank him. They breathed loudly, and Muzan asked him what exactly he wanted. He chuckled thoughtfully, and then told her that she was his fiancée, but at the same time she was asking him how to thank him. She smiled and told him that then. But she didn't finish the thought, because she lightly pushed Dolly with her hand and sat on top of him. He opened his eyes wide, his face turned red, and she told him that he told her that she was just his fiancée, not his wife. Muzan asked him if he really thought that if he said a few kind words to her, it would immediately turn her head. Does he really want her? The young master was confused. He asked her what was she thinking. He told her that he just wanted a hug and not what she was getting at. Mushin stroked his chin with her finger and moved closer to his face, and then told him that she understood him. He asked her, how else could it be? She loudly agreed with him, and then abruptly lay on top of him. Dolly sighed loudly, sweat running down his face and his cheeks puffed out, and he told her that he couldn't breathe. She happily told him that it was wonderful. They lay there for a while in silence, and then Musin called him. She told him that when she saw him for the first time, she didn't think that his chest was so firm and hot. Her eyes were closed, and Dolly's face turned red with embarrassment. He told her it was because he was recovering little by little. Musin smiled and told him that she did not mean his body, but his inner qualities. She had heard many times from different people that he was called an unambitious prodigal son, but after she spent a lot of time with him, she realized that he was not like that. He is actually very smart and caring. She told him that there is a saying, true intelligence is always humble. Musin told him that when he was around, she felt as if even the most difficult problems could be solved in an instant. After her family got into trouble, she couldn't even sleep properly. After this, her father asked her to marry Dolly, and she agreed to become part of the Hong family. Now she sleeps peacefully at night, in complete harmony with herself. She feels safer than when she was with the Tang family. Dolly smiled and told her that he did not know that he was such a reliable person. He always hears from people that the Tang family has problems. He asked her if she could tell him what happened. Dolly told her that he would try to help her. Musin quickly stood up from him and awkwardly rubbed her neck with her hand. She told him that it was a long story. 3 years ago, she came across a strange case. The young master asked her what she meant. She told him that the Tang family's pharmaceutical company was founded 800 years ago. They were developing miracle drugs, and after hundreds of years of development, the company became one of the top 100 leading enterprises in the world. This was explained by the fact that the R&D and cohesion of the company allowed them to advance production to a completely new level. They firmly settled into the place of pharmaceuticals, R&D research and development work. But 3 years ago, a new pharmaceutical company appeared, which in a short period of time developed and released a large number of drugs. This company developed so quickly that it surpassed Tang's company. At first, there was nothing strange about this, because young talents always surpass old ones. But what made the Tang family think was that all the drugs that this company produced were the same drugs that the Tang company had been secretly developing. Moreover, they began to release these drugs in advance, just before the release of the same drugs from the Tang company. After this, it turned out that this company had registered a patent in advance. That is, they not only destroyed the efforts of the Tang company, but also accused them of plagiarism. Dolly told her that based on her story, it could be concluded that a traitor had appeared in their company. This person transferred all the drug prescriptions to another company. It cannot be otherwise. Musin looked down and told him that at the beginning they also thought so, but after investigation they ruled out this option. All employees of the Tang company signed documents to receive a share of the profits. Each employee is paid dividends for life as long as everything is fine with the Tang company, so it is not profitable to give them to any of the employees. Dolly frowned and asked her if it was really a thief who did this. She looked at him seriously and told him that he was right, but this was not just a thief. The young master opened his eyes wide in surprise and asked her if she really thought so. Musin told him that since all the strange things started happening, the company had installed many cameras. Visibility was without blind spots, but this did not bring any results. But one day the guard smelled a pungent smell, so he went to inspect the company's territory, and an unknown person stunned him. The only thing the guard could remember was that before he fainted, he saw the silhouette of a girl with beautiful hair. After this incident, they concluded that all the data of the Tang company was stolen by this girl, who came and went there without a trace, but they still haven't caught her. Musin sighed heavily and told Dolly that they had to suspend the company's work, because the losses that the company had suffered over 3 years were huge. They found themselves in a desperate situation. She told him that if things were different, her father wouldn't even have the thought of using her in exchange for the Hong family's help. But she didn't finish the thought because Dolly smiled and told her that he understood the situation, and then asked her how the Hong family could help them. Do they really want his family to catch a thief that no one can catch? He told her that if they wanted to attract investment, it would not solve Tang's problem. Suddenly, Musin approached him and put her hand on his chest, and then told him that in half a month there would be an auction where a valuable thing would be sold. This happens once every 1,000 years. This is an extremely valuable thing. It will not benefit ordinary companies, but it is vital for the Tang family. The young master opened his eyes wide in surprise, and his fiancée told him that because this thing was priceless, any other pharmaceutical company would easily spend a lot of money on it. Therefore, she can only ask for help from the Hong family because they have great financial resources. Dolly asked her what this thing was. Her eyes lit up, and she happily told him that this was the oldest genuine herb. It was collected during a deadly expedition. The grass was sent for processing and pills were made from it. These pills have an extraordinary effect. It quickly heals wounds and even prolongs life. She told him that this was not a joke. It was all scientifically proven. With this herb, the Tang family will be able to work again and regain their former influence. This will resurrect the Tang family. He stood up and asked Mushin what would they do if the thief came to them again and took all their recipes. She called him stupid and told him that even if the girl thief decided to steal the recipes again, it would not bring her any benefit. The most important thing in these recipes will be Tianyuan grass. Dolly looked at her and asked her what would happen if a thief stole their raw materials. Muzin clenched her hand into a fist and told him that this would not happen. This herb is the solution to the Tang family's problem. They will protect it with all their might. They will not only guard the raw materials day and night, but will also find the best bodyguards. She is sure that the girl thief will no longer have a chance to get to them again. The young master smiled and thought that this was the first time he saw his bride being so stern. She looked so cute. Muzin told her fiancé that the father of the Hong family promised them to get Tianyuan grass. This is their last hope. They will definitely leave all adversity behind. After signing the contract, in addition to equal partnership and profit she needed. But she didn't finish the thought because Dolly asked her what she needed. Her face turned red and she looked sideways, and then told him that as soon as she marries him, she will cook for him every day. She cooks very well, and no one compares to her at this. The young master hummed thoughtfully and then laughed. She quickly walked up to him and grabbed him by the scruff of the neck with her hand, and then asked him what was funny about that. Is he underestimating her? Dolly panicked and answered her negatively, and then told her that she was very sweet and he liked everything. Muzin chuckled and told him that she liked this answer better. Suddenly, they both blushed with embarrassment because their faces were close to each other. The young master told her that she... But he didn't finish the thought because she looked at how she was holding his clothes with her hand, and then she pulled him towards her for it and told him to shut up. After that, she kissed him on the cheek. Dolly opened his eyes wide and blushed. Muzin quickly pushed him away, and he touched his cheek with his hand and looked at her with incomprehension. He was confused and surprised. Muzin smiled sweetly and told him that it was in advance. Dolly laughed contentedly. Half a month later, Father Muzin smiled. He told the father of the Hong family that this was very good. Dolly's father stood behind his bodyguards. He told him that there was no problem because they would become a family anyway, so they need to help each other. He and his wife really liked Muzin. He thanked him for allowing her to be part of their family. After that, he laughed contentedly, and Muzin ran up to her father and hugged him. The father of the Tang family told her that he owed her a great debt. They smiled contentedly. Dolly walked up to them. He bowed to the father of his bride and called him Uncle Tang. Father Muzin was surprised. He asked him if it was really him. He told him he looked much better. The young master embarrassedly rubbed his neck with his hand and told him that it was all thanks to Muzin because she always takes care of him. Uncle Tang smiled and told him that he never thought that his daughter could be so caring. Muzin smiled and told her father that Dolly was talking nonsense. The father of the Hong family was smoking a pipe. He called Muzin's father a friend and told him that it was time for them to go. Father Tang agreed with him. After that, they entered the building. There were a lot of people here. A girl with purple hair asked the man if this was Waiguo. She told him that this time he also came to the auction. The man told her that today's product was very different from the previous ones, so the organizers needed to make a lot of noise and lure as many rich people as possible to the auction. The girl looked at them and then asked the man, "Is it really the prodigal son Dolly who is following Waiguo?" He asked her why she considered the prodigal son. Is she really blind? The man told her that the young master is now one of the influential people today. He was the secret owner of more than a dozen restaurants on the shopping street in the city center. Dolly was the owner of a 3-star hotel and the inventor of barbecue. He asked her if she still thought that the young master was a prodigal son. The girl was very surprised and asked him if he was really telling the truth. The hall was very noisy. The main characters sat comfortably in their seats. Father Mushin told Waiguo that he took 20 million with him, and if this was not enough, he would ask him for help. The father of the Hong family smiled and told him that he didn't have to worry about it. Since he came here, it means he has money with him and everything will be fine. Muzin and Dolly sat down behind them. She became embarrassed and told him that she wanted to go to the toilet. He pointed his finger towards the exit and told her that he wanted it too and therefore would take her there. A couple of minutes later, in the men's room, Dolly was asking for help, and next to him stood a man in a green t-shirt. The man looked at him and his eyes widened in shock. The young master asked him what he was looking at. The man gave him a thumbs up and told him that no one could ever compete with him in the size of that very place. He called him first and smiled. After this, Dolly went to the sink to wash his hands. A man wearing a green t-shirt walked up to him and smiled, so the young master thought he was strange. The man looked at him contentedly, and Dolly was afraid of this. He asked him if he liked men. The man in the green t-shirt smiled and put his hand on his shoulder, and then answered him negatively and told him that he was his big brother in every sense of the word. He told him that he wanted to know something. The man asked him if he really did anything to make it grow. Was he really taking medication? Can he share the recipe with him? He told him that a person couldn't be that size. Dolly shouted at him that he needed to stop touching him. He opened his eyes wide with fear and told him that he was right, that it was not innate. This may be a side effect of medications that strengthen the body. He doesn't know this at all. After that, Dolly turned around and walked towards the exit. He called the man an idiot. The man in the green t-shirt extended his hand towards him and called him brother, and then told him that his name was Mu Zihao. He asked the young master what his name was. But Dolly did not pay attention to him. He left the toilet and headed back to the hall. His cousin stood in his way. He told the young master that he was thinking about why the place smelled so rotten, but it turned out that it was Dolly. He was wearing a yellow suit and a purple shirt. The cousin laughed and then asked him if he had really finished his business. Dolly looked at him and then asked him what his name was. He looked uninterested and picked his nose with his finger, and his cousin became very angry. His face turned red with anger, and he loudly told the young master that his name was Hong Anbao. He was the son of his fourth uncle and his cousin. He told him he was making fun of him. Dolly smiled and told him that he was the same brother the dogs were chasing. He asked him what happened to his butt. People around heard their dialogue and began to laugh. The guy covered his mouth with his hand and asked, "Were Mr. Anbao really being chased by dogs?" The guy with the glasses said he could imagine how funny it was. The guy shushed and told everyone that they needed to be quiet, otherwise Anbao might hear them. The cousin clenched his teeth in anger and then smiled and told Dolly that he would not conflict with him, but he knew why they came here today. He asked him if they really needed genuine grass. The young master frowned and looked at him seriously, and then asked him how he knew this. Anbao came close to him and smiled. He told him that this was not the case. The fact is that today they don't care how much money they spend. The main thing is that they get this grass. Dolly opened his eyes wide, and his cousin walked past him and hit his shoulder with his shoulder. He laughed and told the young master that they would find out later how things would unfold. Muzin approached him. She asked him if this was not his cousin. Why is he laughing? Dolly told her that he was just crazy. A man wearing a green t-shirt walked up to him with a happy face and told him that he was Hong Dolly. He had wanted to meet him for so long. He approached Muzin and told her that she was Dolly's bride. He told her that he was a friend of the young master and his name was Zihao. She is so lucky to have her husband. She looked at him in surprise and asked him what he meant. The young master quickly grabbed her hand and pulled her along, and then told her that they had to go and that she should not pay attention to this pervert. Muzin blushed and agreed with him, and the man in the green t-shirt continued to run after them. He called Dolly his older brother and told him that he never answered his question. He wanted one just as big too. The young master shouted at him that he needed to get out of here and called him preoccupied. A couple of minutes later, they were sitting in the auction hall again. Muzin pulled Dolly's hand with her hand and asked him what that guy in the green t-shirt was talking about. What was his big thing? She told him that she was very curious. The young master was embarrassed and told her that she would know about it later. She disagreed with him and told him that she wanted to find out now. She asked him to show it now. Suddenly, their dialogue was interrupted by a loud sound. The auction host slammed the gavel and greeted all the auction guests. He told them that they had all been waiting for this for a very long time. The auction is declared open. The presenter pointed his hand to the side and told everyone that this was the first thing. On a small cabinet stood a figurine in the form of a phoenix. The host said that this is a jade cup of phoenix contentment. According to legend, several thousand years ago, Emperor Manhua defeated the Fire Phoenix. The jade of this cup was smeared with phoenix fat. It was luxurious and mysterious, only emperors could touch the cup. The starting price was 20 million yuan. From what he heard, Musen's father's face turned pale. He thought about the fact that the cheapest items are put up at the beginning of the auction, and the initial price gradually increases. The last item of the auction should be the rarest and most expensive. He was wondering what kind of grass it would be. People started making bids. A man offered 22 million for the product. Another man offered 24 million. Another person offered 28 million. Suddenly, a man shouted from the end of the hall that he was offering 100 million. Everyone present in the hall turned in his direction in shock. Even the presenter was stunned by this. People began to discuss this in a whisper, and the presenter looked around. He asked who offered such a price. It was the fourth Mr. Hung. He picked his ear emotionlessly with his finger, and the man next to him gave him a thumbs up and told him it was like him. He lives large. Anbao smiled and told the man that his father always either does nothing or makes sure that all people look only at him. Fourth Hong chuckled and told everyone that it was a small thing. Waiguo looked at him and asked why his brother came here. Dolly thought that perhaps this was his father's fourth brother. He was the only famous entrepreneur in his business. He made Simibao the #1 e-commerce platform in the country. Fourth Hong is very fierce, eloquent, and has good business acumen. Dolly heard that they did not get along very well with his father. Father Musen panicked. He told Waiguo that it seemed like things would only get worse. Dolly's father opened his eyes wide in surprise and asked him what happened. Father Musen said that sitting next to Jianai was Xing Leofang. He was the worst enemy of the Tang family and the head of the Shenda Ji company. Leofang looked pleased and laughed quietly. Father Musen was very nervous. Sweat was dripping down his face, and he told Waiguo that they called the fourth Mr. Hong here to buy genuine grass. Once they buy this, the Tang family's company can be put to rest. Mushin furrowed her eyebrows and looked down. She told her fiancé that they were pissing her off. Now they can be sure that they are stealing all their ideas. Now they are ready to completely destroy them. The young master remembered his cousin's words that they didn't care how much money they spent on genuine grass. He thought that they had come here prepared, but it was impossible to predict which of them would win. The host repeated the fourth Hong's bid, and then hit the table with a hammer and said that the Phoenix Cup had been sold. People in the audience continued to discuss this. They were delighted with how much fourth Hong spared no expense. It was immediately obvious that he is a master of his craft. The man told the people that last time, fourth Mr. Hong spent 200 million on a water tripod from the Warring States era just to put his turtle there. He told everyone that he was leaving here. The Warring States period is a period in Chinese history. The auction host said that now they have a second item. There was a beautiful necklace on the small cabinet. It was an azure heart. The stones in this necklace came from the explosion of a distant star. It was made by 100 of the best craftsmen who cast this jewelry for 3 years. The necklace had an elegant translucent azure color, pure and flawless like a girl's heart. Buyers may notice how beautifully the color of the jewelry shimmers. It fascinates them. The starting price of the decoration was 30,000 yuan. A man from the audience said that he was ready to offer 100 million. All the people turned to look at him. They couldn't believe it. The presenter was shocked. Did the man really offer 100 million again? Has everyone gone crazy today? Who was it this time? It was Waiguo. He said that the necklace looked beautiful. It would be a gift for Dolly's bride. The young master laughed loudly, and Musen opened her eyes wide in shock and told Father Dolly that this was very good. But she did not finish the thought because the hall became noisy. The man in the suit cried and said that the fifth tycoon, Mr. Karhong, came here. The entire Hong family was there. This means that they will not be able to buy anything. His friend was also shocked. He told him they bought everything in advance. Anbao got angry. He told his father that he also wants this necklace. He asked me to buy this for him so that he could give the jewelry to Yuxi. The fourth Hong got angry at him and gritted his teeth. He told him that he should shut up. Yuxi was his cousin. He asked him what he was thinking. Anbao's father told him to watch his words, otherwise he would feel bad. Anbao told him that he just liked her. The auction host could barely stand in shock. His body gave way, and he said it was amazing. His leg even cramped, so he pinched it with his hand. He repeated Waiguo's bid, and then slammed the hammer on the table and said that the necklace had been sold. Dolly's father turned to Musen and told her that she should try on the jewelry. He laughed and asked her if she really didn't like his gift. She was very embarrassed and therefore stuttered. Musen thanked him and told him that she really liked it. Her father told Waiguo that this was a very expensive gift. Dolly's father put the smoking pipe in his mouth and confidently told him that since he ran into his brother today, He couldn't let it go unnoticed. Dolly fastened the jewelry around Musen's neck. She blushed, and he asked her if she liked it. She told him that she liked everything. People were shocked. The woman told her husband that she also wanted a piece of jewelry for 100 million. She asked him to buy it for her. He asked her if she had gone crazy. He told her that he didn't have that kind of money. The woman was crying. She told him that the necklace was very beautiful. The man next to them also cried. He said that 100 million was hanging around his neck. He also wants to be Musen. Dolly thought for a moment. His face changed, and now he looked wary. He thought that his father had just started a conflict with his brother. Both of them don't like to waste time on trifles. He was wondering how far the genuine grass bidding would go. A fourth Mr. Hung calmly said that this was just nonsense. The presenter said all about how, unexpectedly, the auction was rapidly gaining momentum from the very beginning. I wonder what the next item will be. He pointed to the side and said that this is a new item. It was the beautiful golden tiara of Empress Gulen. This was more than 3,800 years old. The tiara was inlaid with 110 unusual stones. All of this is priceless and speaks of the noble status of its owner. The tiara was once lost during the Fifth War. It was pulled from the bottom of the river by a fisherman several decades ago. The initial price of the tiara was 38 million. People started placing their bets. They were offering 40 million. 42 million. At this time, a guy in a green t-shirt tapped Dolly on the shoulder. The young master widened his eyes in shock and asked him when did he come here. The guy laughed quietly and called him Big Brother, and then told him that he needed to stop being so surprised. Dolly told him to stop calling him Big Brother. The guy told him that there was no need to avoid him because he would not harm the young master. He just wanted to ask him for some advice. Dolly was unhappy. He crossed his arms over his chest and asked him what was wrong with him. Why is he following him? He told him he needed to go to the doctor. The guy frowned pitifully and told him that the hospital would not help him. Is there anyone who doesn't want to be cool? He offered to give him a prescription for medicine, and he would buy it for any amount. The young master thought about how he could explain to him that this is not the effect of the drugs, but the effect of the system. We'll have to deceive him. Dolly deliberately pretended to be serious. He coughed and told him that he would tell him a secret. The guy in the green t-shirt looked at him expectantly and told him that he was ready to listen to it. The young master told him that there was one medicine that was given to him by a Taoist who was searching for immortality, and he didn't finish the thought because the guy asked him if there really was a nuance to this. Dolly quickly put his hand on his shoulder and smiled, and then told him that this Taoist gave him one pill and he had already drunk it. Therefore, if a guy wants this medicine, then he needs to find this Taoist. But he constantly wanders around the world and Dolly doesn't know his exact location, so the guy will have to look for him himself. He wished him good luck. The guy looked at him questioningly, and then clenched his hands into a fist and sighed with disappointment. He told him that he would not be able to find this old man. Dolly was shocked. He thought that the guy so easily believed in this nonsense. He was a naive fool. The young master lied to an absolute fool, and he doesn't feel sorry at all. He laughed and told the guy that he shouldn't be so sad. If he meets the Taoist again, he will definitely ask for medicine for him. The guy asked him if he was telling the truth. He thanked him. Dolly should have stopped lying to this fool. The host notified the guests that the item had been sold. He pointed with his hand to the next auction item. It was a magical weapon. It was known as the beheading iron. The sword was made by Ryuen Chengjai, the most famous blacksmith in ancient times. He put a white glove on his hand and grabbed the sword. He held it up and said that this sword is sharp as a razor. The sword cuts iron like clay. Long ago, more than 100 Japanese invaders were beheaded with this sword. It was a real precious sword. His heart was pounding just from holding it in his hands. The host told the guests that now they live in peacetime, so under no circumstances should they walk down the street with a sword. At best, the weapons will be confiscated. The starting price for this item was 3 million. People laughed because of the presenter's joke. Dolly smiled and said that this lot was just a distraction. Since childhood, he dreamed of buying a sword, putting it in his room. The sword would ward off the evil aura. Musen blushed, she smiled, and looked very happy. Dolly told the presenter that he was ready to pay 3.5 million. The host informed all the guests in the hall that the young master was ready to give 3.5 million. Anbao smiled ominously and thought about why Dolly needed this sword. He didn't want to concede anything to him, so he thought that if the young master wanted this item so badly, he wouldn't get it. He took 50 million with him so he can afford to play a little. After that, he said that he was ready to buy a sword for 3,510,000. The presenter announced to the audience the price offered by Dolly's cousin. Muzin happily said that she was ready to spend 3,700,000. The young master looked at his bride in shock. Dolly upped the ante to 4 million. Anbao said that he was willing to spend 4,010,000. The young master got angry. He stood up and pointed his finger at his cousin, and then told him that he was deliberately raising the bet by such a small amount. Anbao crossed his arms and told him that this was no small thing. He asked him where it was said that he couldn't raise the bets by 10,000. He called him a cripple. Dolly told him he was starting it again. His cousin asked him why he was starting again. Does he need help finding a nursing home? Dolly loudly said that he was upping the ante and was ready to spend 30 million. Mushin was in shock. She put her hand on her fiancé's thigh, trying to calm him down. Anbao smiled and raised the bet again to 10,000. He laughed and told him that he liked how crazy he was. Dolly was annoyed. He shouted that he was ready to pay 100 million. His cousin was very pleased with this and said that he was willing to pay 10,000 more. He called the young master a fool. Anbao thought that his cousin was an idiot who seemed to be burning with anger. He yells so loudly. If he raises the rate again, he will stop doing so. It will be funny if he buys this piece of hardware for 100 million. Dolly wanted to up the ante again, but suddenly his expression changed. He suddenly calmed down and said that he had passed. His cousin stood up in shock. People in the hall started laughing. They said that they bought the third thing for 100 million. A trinket worth 3 million can be bought for 100 million. They called the brothers fools. The man laughed loudly and said that he was glad he came here. People said that the young master must have wised up, and the person who spends so much money is a fool. The buyer of the sword was a fool. Anbao looked at the people in panic. Everyone was laughing at him. They lifted everyone's spirits. It will definitely be in the news. The guests told him that he needed to peel the apple with a sword. It would taste divine. The man asked, "Who is this fool who will spend so much money?" The man answered him that this was the son of the fourth master. People asked how it was possible that such a wise man could have such a stupid son. Anbao completely failed his plan. He asked his father to pay for the item. The fourth Mr. Hong looked at his son with hatred and told him that his mother prayed to Buddha every day, and he bought a piece of iron that was used to chop people. He called him stupid and then asked him what he needed the sword for. How much money does he have with him? He tesked and told his son that he had a misunderstanding. Liufang laughed and told the fourth Mr. Hong that no matter what the child enjoys, the main thing is that he does not cry. He is willing to pay for it as a small gift to Anbao. Anyway, after they acquire the Tianyuan herb and develop the medicine, they will not be able to give away most of the profits at first. Liufang suggested that he agree that once their medicine entered the market, they would split the profits, 40% for him and 60% for the fourth Mr. Hong. They will definitely buy this grass. He smiled sweetly, but what he really thought was that he was very upset. Then he will need to return this money twice as much. Father Muzin smiled and told Dolly that he knew a sword master, and if the young master liked swords very much, then later he would definitely buy it for him. Dolly smiled and told him that this was not necessary because he was just having fun with Anbao. Zihao grinned and told him that he knew from the beginning that he could beat his cousin. Dolly can always rely on him. The young master looked unhappy. He asked him what he meant. He told him that he could have beaten him. He was just too lazy to keep going. The guy in the green t-shirt chuckled and then snapped his fingers and told him that he knew that Dolly just wanted to fool Anbao. But if he doesn't have money, then he will always find it for him, and the young master only needs to find the Taoist, then they will be even. Dolly was annoyed by this dialogue. He told Zihao to stop because he did not want to owe him. In addition, he is not as poor as he thinks. Dolly made a profit of 200 million from the filming of the film. In addition to this, his hotel business is developing well. Through joint cooperation in the field of amusement parks, he receives daily income. He told him that he didn't need his help. Zihao laughed and told him that he was cool. Their conversation was interrupted by the host, who said that the precious sword had been sold. He put on a serious expression and told the guests that they were continuing the auction. It's time to show off the main thing of this event. The host grinned and told the customers that legend has it that this excellent magic herb grew from a seed that fell from the heavenly realm. The Hong brothers narrowed their eyes, thinking that this is what they came here for. The presenter said that this magical grass was buried under the ice cover of the highest point on the planet for several millennia. Now it's time to see it again. The man in the red suit asked what subject he was talking about. Is the next lot really grass? People in the hall began to say that the presenter was telling mysterious things, but in fact it was ordinary grass. The man said that this is an ordinary herb, and they have a lot of lingjai and ginseng at home. They feed it to pigs. He will miss this lot. The presenter smiled and waved his hand at them negatively. He said that he heard how some people belittle the properties of this herb. You can't do that. This herb is incomparable to Lingjian ginseng. It should be noted that no medicine can compare with this herb. He suddenly started shouting for customers to imagine how they or their older relatives had loose teeth and suffered from various diseases, or when they or a member of their family suffers from a terminal illness and no one can help them. Only this herb will help them. In addition to the fact that the disease will be completely cured, the person's appearance will immediately look younger by at least 10 years, and a person's physical capabilities will quickly return to the state of 20 or 30 years. He asked the guests how such grass would make them feel. People were shocked. They opened their mouths wide because they could not believe that it was true. A man with a receding hairline said his body would look 20 or 30 years younger. He asked if he would really turn from an old man into a young guy. The man with the mustache said that his father was dying of an incurable disease. He asked if there was anything that could save him. The woman with red hair asked, "Isn't this buying a new life?" The man shouted that the presenter was telling a lie, but if it was true, then it was a priceless thing. People have asked that they will pay what they need for weed. Buyers made bids. They offered to buy it for 50 million, for 80 million. Musen looked alarmed. She told her fiancé that it turns out that this herb has even more properties than she knew. Dolly told her that no matter how rich and powerful these people were, they could not help but strive for health and longevity. The grass hasn't even been shown yet, and buyers are already ready to fight for it. Father Musen told Waiguo that this herb was actually healing, but unfortunately, it was a single copy. If a pharmaceutical company manages to buy this lot and develop a medicine based on the herb, then anyone could buy it for a small price. The effectiveness will be significantly reduced, and the medicine will only be able to cure some incurable diseases and restore signs of youth in a person, but it can benefit a large number of people. This is a very profitable way. But if the herb falls into the hands of people who are looking for profit, then the price of the medicine will rise to a level beyond the reach of ordinary people or could even be used for crimes. Fourth Mr. Hung thought that it was normal to make such a medicine very expensive. He wondered how this medicine could be wasted on poor people. He smiled and thought about how he would use this magic medicine to bribe various high-ranking officials and make them willing to give everything to him. Then his company will be at the top of trade affairs and maybe even be part of state power. They started bringing the lot onto the stage. It looked huge. There was blue cloth on the lot, so no one could see what was inside. The host approached this and told the people that since the magic herb could only survive in a frozen state, the expedition team had to break the iceberg and bring it here. The expedition members were exposed to mortal danger in order for this grass to appear in front of them. He sighed contentedly and spread his arms to the side, and then told the customers that just by getting close to it, they could feel the enormous energy in the air. And the whole heavens are separated by just a piece of fabric. It excites. People sighed and looked at the stage with anticipation. The host grabbed the edge of the fabric with his hand and told everyone that it was time to look at the most unique miracle in the whole world. He pulled the cloth of a piece of iceberg and said that this is the ice mountain celestial being Tianyuan grass. A piece of pure iceberg was in the shape of a man. He was holding magic herb in his hands. It sparkled. All the people were delighted with what they saw. They said that it was very beautiful and gave them goosebumps. A man with a receding hairline asked about what he thought, or did it give off some kind of aroma. The girl pressed her hand to her heart and froze. She said that just inhaling the aroma of this, she felt her body filled with energy. The man said that the mysterious healing herb really exists. After that, all the buyers began to loudly ask the presenter to name the starting price of the lot. They are already tired of waiting. The man asked him not to languish them if the grass was too expensive. People said that the price for such a treasure was at least 50 million, at least 100 million, 200 million. The presenter smiled and raised his finger up. He told them that they were wrong. Over the past few days, experts have been trying to set a starting price for the lot for the auction, but they have concluded that any amount seems insulting and gross for such a priceless treasure, so the starting price for the lot will be 0. Starting price 0 yuan. The buyers were shocked. They asked him if it was true. He smiled and told them that everything was right. Transferring the right to set the price to those present here is the highest indicator of respect for the miracle grass. It came into their world to heal the dying and alleviate the suffering of the sick. Whether they up the ante to an eye-watering amount or give away just a small portion of their business, the important thing is that they will be doing it for the benefit of their lives. He raised his hand and shouted that the bidding begins now. The people in the hall were silent. No one offered their bet. Musen told Dolly that just now it was very noisy in the hall, but now all the people were quiet. She asked him why this was happening. The young master told her that all the people sitting in the hall were businessmen, and it would be beneficial for each of them to purchase the item at a low price. However, the miracle herb is offered with a 0 starting price, so everyone is ashamed to offer a low price. Everyone understands this. But once someone bids, other people will continue to bid enthusiastically because they don't want to lose. He told her to look at it. After that, he decided to be the first to offer his bid, and said that he was willing to buy the grass for 10 million. Suddenly the room became noisy again. Everyone was shouting that they were ready to raise the bet. People wanted to pay 15, 18, 20 million. Musen smiled and told her fiancé that they used to calmly put forward bids of 100 and 200 million, but now they almost never raise bids for a larger amount. Life is important, but getting the most out of it is even more important. Zihao put his hand on Dolly's neck and told him that the main thing is a deal with minimal costs. He asked Musen if he was right in this. She covered her mouth to keep from laughing and told her fiancé what a wonderful friend he had. Dolly looked at him displeasedly and then asked her why she considered Zihao his friend. They just met. People kept raising their bids by small amounts. They were offering 26 million, 27 million. Dolly told Musen that if things continue like this, they will be stuck here until tomorrow, so he needs to change this. He said that he was ready to pay 200 million for the grass. The host smiled and told everyone that the young master was willing to give 200 million. This is an incredible price. People were shocked. The girl asked why the rate was immediately increased to 200 million. Is this really the real price of the medicine? The man said it was stupid. The medicine costs lives. Musen was very surprised. She asked Dolly if he was really going to use all the money he earned for her. She called him crazy. He looked at her in surprise and then began to look around. Musen asked him what he was looking for. The young master told her that he was looking for another bride for whom he could spend money. She blushed and smiled, and then grabbed his face with her hands and told him that he only had one single bride. Dolly told her that he was in pain. Father Musen thought that no one could even think that such a weak person with a bad reputation like Dolly would be the first person who was willing to pay such a high price. But there were also his interests here. Originally, he just wanted to use the marriage to wield the power of the Hong family. But the Hong family spares no expense and takes good care of his daughter. It was immediately clear that they give her all their support and love. As her father, he sees the sincere feelings on Mushin's face, and he believes that she truly ended up in a good family. In today's auction, Shen Deji's company and 4th Mr. Ten Hong have joined forces. Even if Wai Guo and his son also join forces, the result of the auction is still unknown. Father Musen sighed heavily and thought that even if he were defeated in this auction, he would be calm for his daughter, because now she is happy. Tanren Tang thought that he would accept any situation. Suddenly, the 4th Mr. Hong raised the bid. He said that he was willing to buy the grass for 500 million. He showed 5 of his fingers, and the presenter shouted that he had raised the bet. The 4th gentleman put up a mind-boggling price with one hand. Wai Guo smiled and confidently said that he was ready to pay 700 million. The host told the buyers that the 5th Mr. Hong followed his brother's example and raised the bid. This is currently the highest bid at an auction in China. The 4th gentleman looked serious. He said that he was ready to pay 1 billion. The presenter was shocked. He repeated this price and asked if he really needed this magic herb so much. People were shocked. The man said that this was a real battle of the gods. In just 2 betting roll calls, the price of weed rose to 1 billion. The old woman opened her mouth wide in surprise and said that they didn't care how much money they spent. The man with the mustache said that it would take an ordinary office worker more than 500 years to earn 1 billion. He doesn't need grass, he just wanted 1 billion, and then he'll leave here right away. Wai Guo frowned and said that he was willing to pay 1.5 billion. His brother raised the bet to 2 billion. They were not going to give in to each other, and so Dolly's father raised the rate again and said that he was ready to pay 3 billion. The 4th gentleman raised the bet to 5 billion. The brothers continued to raise the price, and eventually the bid rose to 10 billion. The presenter fell to the floor, his face turned blue, and he did not understand what was happening. It was a depressing atmosphere, his body was shaking, he was in shock. He said that the brothers had reached 10 billion, he did not imagine it. But they were not going to stop. Wai Guo said that he was ready to buy the grass for 13 billion. His brother looked smug. He also raised the bet to 15 billion. The presenter grabbed his throat with his hand. He said that he would now suffocate from such prices. Everyone around was silent and watched the brothers. Tanren's face turned blue from tension, and sweat flowed down his face. Everyone was surprised by this. Dolly frowned and thought that the fourth gentleman was so relaxed. This is a terrifying force. This is no longer a bidding for goods. It is more like a struggle for territory between two predators. Due to the pressure, the small animals have no choice but to shake in fear. He looked at his father worriedly and wondered why he was so wound up. Where is his sense of proportion? Suddenly, Father Mushin grabbed Waiguo by the hand and shouted at him to stop. These numbers were beyond comprehension. It's not worth it. Dolly's father asked him why he thought so. Tanrin told him that although this herb is precious, they will not be able to cultivate it and grow it, meaning the amount of medicine will be limited anyway. When the drug goes on sale, their profit will be approximately 20 or 30 million. That is, the higher the price at auction, the less they will earn. After all, they won't be able to simply recoup the costs and expenses. They might even lose some money. All efforts will be in vain. Waiguo hesitated a little and told him what it was. But he didn't finish the thought. Liu Feng looked happy. He smiled and told the fourth master that Dolly's father was in turmoil, so they would definitely win this deal. He suggested that together they increase their profits 1,000 times and get rich. Fourth Mr. Hong looked at him and told him that he had spent quite a lot of effort in the auction, and then asked him if he thought they should reconsider their distribution method. The head of the company, Shendeji, panicked and asked him if he was not happy with the division. The fourth gentleman chuckled and asked him whether such a division would really be equivalent. He told him that he was the owner of an established factory. Waiguo's brother bought this medicine to cooperate with other factories that were robbed by people like him. They will repay him with great benefits. Liu Feng opened his eyes wide and asked him what he meant. Does he really want to betray him? Does he even know who is behind Shendeji's company? The fourth gentleman was calm. He asked him, aren't they just a flawed company that has no brains of their own? Didn't they come to him to beg him for financial help? He told him that he wanted to enjoy his company even more tomorrow. He is a businessman. Or he gives him 90% and, in addition, shares with him all the resources and their connections. Or he will just swallow this grass and get younger alone, and they will just continue to play catch-up between the companies without him. Liu Feng was angry. He pointed his finger at him and told him that But their dialogue was interrupted because the presenter said that the current rate was 15 billion. He asked if anyone else wanted to place a bet. The room was quiet, and then he began to count down the time until the sale. Tanrin continued to hold Waiguo's hand. He shook his head negatively. Dolly was tense. He thought that it seemed that his uncle had won after all. He took Musen's hand with his hand and told her that now he would not be able to help her. She smiled awkwardly and told him that there was nothing wrong with it and everything was fine. The Tang family's fate has already been sealed. They accept it. The host's body was still trembling with shock. He asked again, is there anyone willing to place a bet? Does no one else want to raise the price of the lot? But everyone was silent, and he started counting again. People were shocked. They sat with their eyes wide open. The elderly woman thought that it was impossible to bid higher. The man with the mustache said that this is a very high price. Some people don't even have 100 million. The woman said that some people don't even have 10 million. But this herb is really a good thing. The man said that there was no need to comment further on this purchase because all people already know that the fourth gentleman has a lot of money. Suddenly everyone heard a man's voice. He said he was willing to pay 10 billion American dollars. The presenter coughed, and all the people turned around at the sound of the voice. Everyone was shocked. They couldn't believe it. The presenter's eyes bulged, and he said that the man was ready to pay $10 billion. He asked who has so much money here. This price was proposed by Zihao. He picked his nose with his finger and calmly answered the presenter that he had that much money. He said it was a small thing, just pocket money for a month. His family opens the largest casino in the Northern Hemisphere. He was the golden youth of casino owners. Dolly was in shock. His face was so twisted that he no longer looked like himself. He told Zihao that he was a giant. The guy in the green t-shirt smiled contentedly and put his hand on his shoulder, and then told him that he had just told him that if he needed money, he should ask him for it, but he refused. The young master coughed awkwardly and scratched his cheek with his finger, and then told him that they were betting billions here, but people still thought he was a spendthrift with millions. Everyone here should worship Zihao. The host seemed to go crazy. His face looked crazy. He said the guys bid and asked the buyers, who wants to raise the bid? Does anyone want to increase the price? Anbao frowned pitifully and asked his father if they would remain silent. The fourth gentleman told him that this was no longer a price, but crazy nonsense, so they gave up. Liu Feng threatened him with his finger and clenched his teeth in anger. He told him that he didn't think he couldn't be relied upon. After that, he got up and left the hall. Anbao told his father that all the people from Shendeji's company are strange, they always cheat. He asked him if they would definitely not have problems because of this. The fourth gentleman told him that they didn't have what they needed, so they didn't need them. They had nothing else to do at the auction, so they needed to get out of here. The host counted to 3, and then said that the magic herb was sold for $10 billion, sometime later, near the entrance to the conference room. It was a beautiful white building, and there was a small fountain outside. Waiguo closed his eyes sadly and told Tanren that he could not help him. Father Muzin told him not to say that. They all saw what was happening at the auction just now. The Tang family is destined for this. He smiled and told him that the main thing they needed to discuss was that after the fall of the Tang family, whether Muzin was worthy of being Dolly's bride. She looked down and was upset. The young master made an excited face and told Tanren that he was talking about him as a powerful person, but he was quite an ordinary guy. Moreover, their engagement to Mushin says a lot about this. He asked him if he really regretted it. Father Muzin laughed, and then told him that he had no regrets. He is very happy that his daughter is happy. She looked at them confusedly, and Waiguo told Tanren that Dolly had been in poor health since childhood. It turns out that he would not deserve such a worthy wife. But now his son is fine, he will not mistreat his future wife. He gave him a thumbs up and told him that they should find a suitable wedding day. Father Muzin agreed, and Dolly blushed with embarrassment. He covered his mouth with his hand and asked them, would they really do it so quickly? Zihao came out of the building. He smiled and asked the young master if he was getting married. He congratulated him on this. In his hands was a huge black case. Dolly asked him if he wasn't afraid that he would be robbed with a box worth $10 billion. Zihao smiled and told him that he didn't want to brag, but any person who wanted to steal something from him must at least be a boxing champion. After that, he easily threw the black case to Dolly and told him to catch it. The young master barely caught it, his eyebrows furrowed, and he clenched his teeth because the case was very heavy. He asked Zihao what he was doing. He thought that this case was very heavy. It should be a magical herb sealed with ice cubes. He had a feeling that it weighed at least 100 kilograms. Zihao held this case with only one hand and still managed to throw it to him. This guy is not as simple as he seems. Dolly could barely stand and told him that he realized how tough Zihao was. He asked him to quickly pick up the case and then asked him what he was going to do with the magic grass. Zihao raised his finger up and asked him, wasn't this the herb he wanted so badly? After that, he smiled and told him that now this case belongs to him. He uses the grass for other purposes, it has no use for him. He asked him why not do him a favor. Everyone was surprised. The young master was unable to continue holding such a heavy case, so it fell directly onto his foot. He started jumping and grabbed his leg with his hand and told him that he was serious. But he didn't finish the thought, because Zihao told him that he was serious. But he has one condition. He approached Dolly and quietly asked him to take care of him and bring him the vaunted medicine of the old Taoist. He didn't need anything else in this life, it was something like his obsession. Dolly frowned with displeasure and told him that he knew that he would ask him about it. Zihao gave him his business card and told him that the young master could come see him whenever he wanted. After that, he turned around and waved his hand at him, and then told him to just accept it as a wedding gift for him and his bride. Dolly told his new friend that he would take note of this. He pulled out his business card and told him that he would give it to him, because they need to get to know each other properly. Dolly told him his name and threw him his business card. Zihao smiled and caught the young master's business card with his fingers, and then also told him his name. They were pleased to meet each other. Dolly looked at the case and rubbed his forehead with his hand. He sighed and said that this is an unexpected freebie in view of things worth several billions. This is amazing. He looked at Tanren and told him that this case was for him. Father Muzin was shocked. He began to stutter and asked him if he was really giving the case to him. Was he serious? He loudly told him that the magic herb was worth billions of dollars. Dolly smiled and asked him, didn't they come here to get this miraculous herb for the Tang family? He told him that even though things didn't go according to plan, they still had the herb, which meant it belonged to him. Tanren fell to his knees next to the case. He began to touch it with his hands and told him that he had no words. The Tang family is saved, their business is saved. Muzin hugged Dolly. She thanked him. He smiled and told her that it was not his fault. Waiguo laughed happily and told his son that Zihao had just given him the herb, so it was partly his fault. The Mu family is one of the top 5 richest and most influential families in the world. He asked him how he was able to meet young Master Zihao. Dolly hesitated, but his father told him that his new friend had spared no expense in purchasing the grass for him. They must be more than just acquaintances. Muzin smiled and told Waiguo that she heard Zihao praising Dolly for having something very big and telling him that he would really like to be friends with him. The young master's father asked him, where does his son have something big? She told him that she asked her fiancé, but he refused to answer her. He told her that she would see it a little later. But she did not finish the thought because Dolly quickly covered her mouth with his hand. He awkwardly told his father that he had a big heart. Zihao told him that he had a big heart and was also impressed by his character. He laughed awkwardly. Waiguo walked up to Mushin's father and extended his hand to help him stand up. Tanrin told him that now that they have this herb, the company needs to start researching and producing medicine as soon as possible. Waiguo told him that he was right, but they need to be careful that their company is not robbed again. If they need reliable protection, then Tanrin should tell him about it. He will organize everything. Father Muzin stood up and told him that they would be careful, but the previous robberies were not due to weak security, but because of the amazing ability of the person who was the thief. He was hiding from all the established protections as if he were a ghost. The well-being of the Tang family depends on the magic herb, so he is ready to die as long as it is safe and sound. Dolly furrowed his eyebrows in concern and thought that ghosts did not exist. But was it possible that the thief used advanced technology to evade security? He needed to ask Chuyin how to avoid a possible repetition of this situation. The Hong family's subordinates took the box from both sides and lifted it up. They said that they needed to discuss all the issues after they took this box to a safe place. The subordinate said that the case is very heavy. How could the young master hold this? Meanwhile, Leofin was watching them. He stood around the corner of the building and watched them.